This is yet another MBA GO.A.T, a podcast featuring conversations with the greatest of all-time MBA alumni from the Naveen School of Management at the University of Texas at Dallas. We are here to celebrate the outcomes of graduate management education and to identify remarkable examples of how the MBA program here at the Jindal School has transformed the lives of our alumni. Now, here's Lisa Shatz, Assistant Dean for the Jindal School's MBA programs. Take it away, Lisa.
Hey, you guys. Thanks for coming back for another MBA GO.A.T. So happy to have Valerie Ward with us today. Valerie is a lead experience manager at one of the large telecom companies. She's also a very recent grad. So it seems like just yesterday I would have been saying a current student, and now she is an alum of the program. Welcome, Valerie.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm so happy to be here.
So you will have to tell our audience what a lead experience manager is.
A lead experience manager. I focus in customer experience. So as a lead experience manager, it is my job to shepherd our customer on their journey through our retail store. So any type of digital experience that the customer might engage in, whether that would be something like in-store pickup or using their phone to learn more about products or doing a self-checkout of some sort. All of those digital aspects of our customer's journey in the retail store is something that I advocate for. I work at the hub of marketing, of a creative aspect, and from a business point of view, and really try and align all of those pieces to keep our customers' best interests at heart while we're creating new programs.
So I'm guessing you have to think about every customer individually, but you're actually looking at massive amounts of data that consolidate those experiences in ways that you can see some trends?
Yes, this is a bit of a strategic position. I do have resources, analytic resources that I utilize in teams that help me sort through all that to help make appropriate business decisions. But from my point of view, I am the customer. Everything that I work on is for their benefit, because ultimately that's how we gain customer satisfaction and how we can grow our business.
So I think the most interesting part to me of your journey is you are very unlike a lot of the students in our classes where they've had a couple of years of work experience. They want to transition to something new. You are someone who was a math teacher and then spent some time at home with kids. And this was really a way to transition yourself back into the workforce, which we know there's a lot of really talented women out there and men who take time to raise their family. And then it's kind of like, well, what do I do now to get back in? And not only did you make that transition, but I will say you made it extremely well and ended up with, just a great offer and a great company. Talk a little bit about how that was to, be home with your family and then to realize that you need to get back into the workforce, and how are you going to do that?
So that's a good question, Lisa. I did stay at home with my children for about 10 years. During that time, I was doing my own small business as a math tutor. Because prior to that, I had been working in education in the middle school and high school education. I knew all along it was a conscious decision for me to stay home with my children. We're very lucky that our household was able to support that type of situation, and so I stayed home with my 3 kids. But I always knew that I was going to make my way back to the business world, make my way back to my own career. And so as my children got older, I took some steps to kind of prepare for that transition back to my career. And I always knew that it would probably take some kind of a springboard to get me back there after taking so much time off. So one of the things that I knew was that I was going to have to go back to graduate school of some sort. I don't know if you know this. I actually came to UT Dallas looking at their master's programs first, not the MBA program. I looked at the Masters of Analytics that y'all offer. And it was while I was up there in those hallways, I literally stumbled into the MBA office just on a whim. I don't know if you know that, but
I did not know that.
I had made an appointment to go to visit with one of the master's people, and they were kind of like, you might check out down the hallway. And I went down there, and there were the program office people waiting to help me, the MBA program office, and explained to me, about the program and what all y'all offered. And so that's actually how the MBA became a part of my trajectory. It was a happy coincidence.
I had no idea that we just got so lucky on that.
I got lucky. It worked out.
When you were looking at programs, you were looking at other programs, you ended up with the MBA, which I'm sure was much different than what you would have anticipated with a more technical degree. What part of the learning that you got in the MBA was, I hate to say a standout, but where you were like, wow, this is not a technical skill, but this is something that's so valuable in either, through your journey here or what you're doing now?
I think it's important to note that as part of the MBA program, that there is an opportunity to get some of those more technical skills that you would have acquired with a master's program. But what I feel really differentiates the program, the MBA program, is that there is a focus on some of those softer skills. So whereas I definitely got some incredible value out of my marketing web analytics class, that was a very technical class. I use Adobe Analytics and that kind of software on a regular basis with my job. And the same with data visualization, something that was very technical and relevant to what I do. But the best part about the MBA program, from a learning perspective, was learning how to sharpen my softer skills, like communication, the amount of writing that we do, not just, papers that you turn in, but also communications between your peers, speaking presentations, all types of communication that's something that the MBA focuses on, that I really benefited from. The same can be said for time management, trying to, the full-time program, it is a little bit accelerated, right? Like you take 5 or 6 classes a semester, and a lot of those classes have overlapping deadlines. So learning how to prioritize, learning how to collaborate with your team to accomplish your goals, playing to each other's strengths, all of that goes into being able to manage your time well. So that was something that I found valuable. And then I guess I would just also mention that there was just a general attitude shift. And I could see it with all of my cohort, actually, that, as time went by, at first, that very first, assignment we had during league camp that was to make a presentation, everybody was like, oh my gosh, how are we supposed to do this in 2 days? And then fast forward, not even a semester. And it's oh, don't worry, we've got 2 days for that. So it's a total mind shift in confidence and attitude that, you can accomplish anything, especially when you're working with other very capable teammates. And
it seems like every student kind of has their role within the class. I remember yours distinctly. I think you would probably answer the same as me. Your role was class mom.
Oh my gosh, I totally was. They even voted me, they have the superlatives at the end of the journey, and they were like, best smile and, the friendliest or whatever. And yeah, I got best shoulder to cry on. You could always count on me to have, to give you a hug. And I had my locker had nothing but snacks in it, snacks and extra flashcards and extra Scantrons for people who needed it. Just pass that out.
So one thing that most of our students talk about when they talk about UT Dallas is diversity. And there's not a language or a dialect that is not spoken in this building. But your class was the first class where we really started to make inroads in the female percentage. And your class was unusual for an MBA class. It was almost half and half female to male. Yeah. When you look back at the other classes or other schools, and just knowing that MBA classes are very often 20% female, 80% male, how did that change your experience in the dynamic of the class?
I remember showing up the very first day and being in the atrium there in JSOM, and I got there early, which was a miracle, but I got there early, and I just watched as the rest of the members of my cohort walked in, And it was like, oh my gosh, there's another woman coming in. There's another woman coming in. Like, my expectation really was to show up to a cohort that was mostly men. And so I was just floored that first day. And I think we all were. We were all just amazed that, that our program was going to have more women in it. It was something that, I've talked to the other women in our cohort, and we all feel like it made it so much more comfortable for us to voice our opinions. It made us feel like we had people who would reinforce our point of view. It's a whole different type of network building. I don't know if you know, I think you know this. We have a new chapter of NAMBA, which is the National Association of Women's MBAs, here on campus. And I really think that was started with the traction because of the traction that was built with the number of women who were in our cohort. There were enough women to support that. And so women helping women. I think from another perspective, though, during classes, when the professors ask questions, for the men in our cohort to be able to see us being proficient, being able to see us being capable, for them to hear our points of views, I think that was a good opportunity for them to grow as well. So, the women were able to build each other up. The men were, many of the men in our cohort are, they're very supportive. I remember some in particular during class when we do have conversations that might be a little bit more tricky to navigate, but having the support of the men, having the support of the women just made it really comfortable. It made people's perspectives or their points of view widen a little bit. Maybe things weren't totally changed, but maybe they had just the exposure, just for them to know that women are capable and that women do have a place in business, and to have them, help support that and, be able to speak to that in the future, I think was really important.
Yeah, I think historically the MBA programs have kind of mirrored what the leadership in companies look like. So, we know that at the C-suite level, there's very little female representation. And then you go down to the next level, it's still pretty low. And historically, MBA programs have kind of mirrored that. So, should we be mirroring it, or should we be pushing more women who are capable and driven into the workforce to start driving more women up at those levels? And of course, it takes a while. It takes a while for people to get out of a program to work their way up to those levels. So 20 years from now, where we have a class of half women MBAs, we need to see those leadership roles filled by half women for that to really start making a difference. So, but we're already seeing it. We're already seeing more women in the workplace, more women moving up, and more women at the C level, although it's moving slowly. So, maybe someday we'll look back at your class and be like, wow, that was X number of years ago, and look at how many of those women are in really powerful positions in companies. So I love your, you're so positive in this discussion. And it reminds me whenever I'm interviewing anyone, I always go to my team and I'm like, okay, these are the things that I remember about the student, and am I forgetting anything? And so this morning on our call, I said, hey, I'm talking to Valerie this morning. And they all said the same thing. They said, tons and tons of positivity. But think about that. That's kind of the legacy that you leave in that class. But think about how important that is in the workplace, for someone to be on a team and to have them described by their boss as somebody who's always really positive. Of course, that's going to make opportunity and help drive things forward. So we're so proud of everything you're doing.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Being positive is definitely something that is, it's not just something that's a career attribute for me. I think it's something that's very personal. At any point in life, you can make a decision to make the worst of something or make the best of something. And I think that the only growth happens, and the only change happens, and the only good happens if you think that it's possible, and that if you keep that positive attitude to give you the fuel to keep working towards that possibility and making it a reality. So that's so nice to hear that they thought that about me.
And you talk about putting a positive spin on things, but you also talked about time management. So tying both of those things in, you were juggling a lot. You came into the program, you had 3 kids. You, if I remember right, in the middle, there was some kind of, not a dangerous thing or anything, but some kind of medical thing where you're dealing with, I think you had some kind of small surgery or something like that. So you had, a lot of things that you're juggling. So for students who are thinking about coming into an MBA program, what advice would you give them on how to juggle the rest of their life and do an MBA program, especially one rigorous like ours?
That's a very good question. Sometimes I wonder how I even made it through. But no, definitely involves having a support system, whether that's your spouse or your partner or your family, your siblings, a nanny, your neighbors, whoever it might be that can help you balance your responsibilities. I know that I leaned heavy on my husband, Harrison, and we leaned heavy on a nanny actually who was able to come, and drive the kids after school and take them places that they needed to go to and care for them at home while I was working on my coursework. There was a shift mid-program from being in person to being a digital student. And that was a whole other level of adjustment to make that work. But what I can say is that within the program, I wasn't the only person who had children. We had other classmates who were also parents. Amongst my classmates, not once did anybody say anything negative about the amount of time I had available to give. They were always supportive. I mean, people offered to babysit when I had big projects. They offered to come to my house to work on things, or they understood if bedtime was at 8 and that was something that I made a commitment to be home and put my kids to bed at night. And so they understood when it was 7:00, I have to leave. And they knew that, if the work still needed to be done, that once my responsibilities at home were resolved, that sure, I'll log back in at 10:00 and get back on that. But that communication is important to have with your teammates. It's important to have with your support structure. And really, I think I'd also like to comment that the professors were incredibly understanding as well. There was a time or two when I had a conflict. I couldn't attend a class, or I had a paper that was due, or I had a test that was due the exact same time as like the school talent show or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, my daughter's been working on this for, weeks and weeks and weeks. I'm going to have to miss it because the test is scheduled at the same time. And finally I was like, you know what? I'm going to email that professor and let's just see what happens. And sure enough, they were like, oh, sure, I'll change the window for you. You can take it at a different time. They know that people have lives, and they know that everyone's doing the best they can to manage their balance. And there's no goal that you can accomplish that's worth it if you have to do it at the detriment of your family obligations and the things that are truly most important. The pandemic really accelerated people's willingness to be understanding. And so it's commonplace. I mean, even now I do video calls. I mean, I'm on video calls all day, every day. Sometimes it feels like, and often my children will just come in and, they get off a school bus and they just come in and they crawl in my lap and they sit there and I hold them while I'm working, and nobody blinks twice, it's something that everyone is doing at home. And it's just part of life, right? We're people. We're not cogs, we're people. UTD was really great about being flexible. When I say UTD, I mean the staff, the cohort. They were very flexible and understanding to help me.
Well, I remember multiple calls we were on where your kids were on your lap or climbing here, climbing there. More visual than my dogs, but my dogs you could hear in the background. So we all have our things. And it was a challenge, but one thing you touched on is your support system. And man, I can't say that enough. If your family's not in it to win it with you, then it's not the right time. You remember at the beginning of the program, we had a spouses lunch to get all the spouses in so that they could hear from us what it really looked like. So they could kind of be prepared and make friendships with each other as well. And we had some alumni spouses there to say, when we went through, this is what we did to support our staff, our spouse. But, I put a husband through an MBA program too. And, I got my own MBA and then he got his. So I feel like I really have like 1.5, but sometimes it just takes it takes a village, and 2 years or 16 months or whatever is way too long to say, okay, I'm going to just bury my head in the sand, and when I get out, my family will still be there. You've got to make priorities.
Well, and I think it's interesting you said, the priorities, you're right. They're not always academic priorities or career priorities. It's a balanced portfolio of priorities that change day by day, depending on when deadlines are and what events are happening.
This episode is brought to you by the UT Dallas MBA program, top ranked nationally and in Texas. The UT Dallas MBA combines a robust core with 13 concentrations. You have an option to add a second master's degree, and your choices for that include 5 STEM-designated programs. The MBA program has full-time, part-time, online, and other formats. They give you flexibility to fit your MBA education into your busy schedule. The skills and training you will receive are what top employers are looking for. For more information, visit us online at jindal.utdallas.edu/MBA.
So what do you miss most about your cohort experience?
I miss my classmates. I really do. We had our cohort was pretty amazing. Like everybody got along. Everybody was very positive. Everybody, worked together. It was so great to see how everybody could I know that I grew during the program, but so did everybody else. So watching everybody else's progress and watching them grow was pretty fantastic. I miss the day-to-day interaction with them where I could just be like, hey, you guys, what's going on? And they could fill me in with who they're interviewing with or for internships or what projects they're working on. That's a little tough. Now I know where most of everybody ended up or what all they're working on, but the closeness, the day-to-dayness of it, it's different. We have a WhatsApp group. We try, we keep up, we post things sometimes, but one of these days we'll have an official graduation party and get to catch up and see what everyone's doing.
A post-COVID.
A post party.
And it'll be nice to hear how everyone's doing, because some of the students in your class just got amazing positions. Really successful class from that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of people doing lots of good things. Lots of good people doing lots of good things.
Is there any academic project that you had or project that you worked on extensively that you feel like you learned the most from?
There's a couple of them that have been impactful, but the most memorable one, and the one that I think probably changed my life the most, not to sound too dramatic, but the most life-changing one was that Professor Biswas assigned a marketing strategy assignment where you were supposed to develop your own product and create an entire strategy around that product and then present that in a presentation for the class to try and sell your idea to the class or sell your strategy to the class. And that was something that my team and I worked really hard on, from coming up with the idea to all the different aspects of the strategy, building out a deck to present the information in a concise and a beautiful way, and then presenting that to the class and feeding off their feedback and being able to speak to the product like it was something real. That's actually very similar to what I'm doing right now as a lead experience manager, as a product manager, coming up with ideas, trying to put a strong strategy together for those ideas, presenting them in a way that's digestible and appealing to people, that gets people to want to be on board with the project. That's something that I do every day. I remember in my interview with the company when I was actually interned for them over the summer before I accepted a full-time job. And during that internship interview, somebody asked me the same question. They said, and this is a really good interview question. They say, well, what are you working on? And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, what am I working on? I'm working on everything right now. I'm working on everything. I have so many projects, but that one just stuck out. And I started telling them. At first I was a little tentative. I was like, well, I've got this little project. And then the more we talked about it, I was like, well, actually, this is the idea and this is all the information behind it. And I just kept going on and on about the project. I left the interview thinking that I had rambled my way through this project. But really, I think that was a defining moment in the interview, and that, I had a new idea. I had something that I was excited about, and that passion translated through the work that I did on it, and is 100% matched to what it is that I do in my job today. So I'm so grateful for that project that it existed. I'm so grateful that I had that experience to speak to, that project to speak to, that even though I didn't have something in my official resume background that lined up with what it was they were looking for, like the pieces came together and the non-official project work was there for me to speak to. And then eventually, I guess, made it to where they thought I was a good fit too. So without it, where would I be? Thanks, Professor Biswas.
What was your idea?
It was an app for like music enthusiasts, for people who go to concerts, for them to be able to connect with each other, share like concert videos, and like share, like to chat on the side, or to, you know, make friends who have similar music taste as each other. I love music too, so there you go.
I think one of the parts I like the least, that I shouldn't say I like the least, one of the hardest parts of my job, and 99% of my job I love because I get to work with students like you and watch students come in not knowing what they're going to do with their life, and then watch them do amazing things. It's unbelievably rewarding. But the hard part is hearing, you know, so you talk about, you know, you got to come up with an idea and go through that process. And sometimes I just want to do my MBA again. Because of course I didn't know what I was doing. And it was way, you know, back in the day I got my MBA, the requirements were much different. Today's generation, they're developing apps and, you know, businesses and doing nonprofit work. And they're doing all these different things, where I think an MBA was much more binary back then. But I would love to be able to give myself the time to sit in a class and take one of my ideas and go through that process. But I had my turn, and and I don't get to do that.
We keep talking, or we've mentioned a few times, like the academic aspects of the program, but really one of the most important parts of the program is taking the time, like we're saying, to think on yourself and think about what your strengths are, and to think about what your trajectory is, and to think about how you can build yourself up at using the resources and networks that we have, the tools, the academics, use those things to, you know, move forward in your career. So the program, obviously, that's the first thing. When I signed up, I was like, oh my gosh, classes are going to be so hard, blah, blah, blah. But really it was almost harder taking the time to think about, like, what am I good at? What am I good at? What could I even do even better? And how am I going to do that? How can I communicate what I'm good at with other people? I think sometimes it's hard for us to self-advocate in that way, or to take the time it takes to really understand that. But the MBA program gives us the opportunity, the time, the experiences, the resources to think through all that and, you know, find our path forward. I
think you're right. I think that it is a great gift to give to yourself, to give yourself that time to really figure out what your future is. And it's a great sign of confidence that you're worth that investment.
Oh, definitely. And it's a sign of confidence that your support system thinks that you're worth that investment, right? That they believe in you enough that they're helping you. And again, not just personally, but also within the school, the program's office, the cohort, the faculty, you know, having people who believe in you and who believe that you're worth your investment, your self-investment.
All right. So we're going to move on to a lightning round. We're going to make you think on your feet.
Oh, no. Okay.
I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and you're not allowed to think about it more than just long enough to get something out.
Okay.
Who was your class clown?
Oh my gosh. Class cat. I don't know. Everyone's funny. They all tell funny jokes. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
You could always say yourself.
Oh, no, well, it wasn't me. I'm not that funny.
Who's your favorite faculty member?
Dr. Jeffrey Hicks.
Your favorite snack from the vending machine?
Reese's Pieces.
Your favorite study spot in the building?
Ooh, the MBA breakout rooms. You can lock the door and nobody bugs you, except for your own friends who have the code.
And 3 adjectives about your journey.
3 adjectives about my journey. Self-discovery, positivity, and exploratory. That's kind of like self-discovery too.
I love it.
That's what it's going to be.
I love those adjectives. Those are perfect. I should put those up on my wall.
Make your own vision board. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time, Valerie. It was good catching up. And I'm delighted that you are doing so well and that you landed just where you wanted to be.
Well, thank you so much. When I reflect on the MBA program, I 100% I'm just so grateful for the opportunity that the program has offered me. I don't think I would have ever gotten here by myself. It's something that, like we said, it takes a village, and y'all were such an important part of that. So thank you so much for believing in me and inviting me to join the cohort and be a part of the program. And I'm happy to be here and, sing y'all's praises and try and bring more people into the fold who can go through the same journey of self-discovery and, find their future career paths. So thanks for inviting me here today.
We are so glad you could join us today and hear about the journey of yet another MBA GOAT. For me, my MBA was truly transitional, as it is for so many of our students. If you're wondering where an MBA can take you, reach out to us and let's talk about you. Email us at mba@utdallas.edu and feel free to ask for me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of yet another MBA GOAT podcast. Join us online at mba.goat.com to find episode notes, links, and more. Be sure to subscribe to yet another MBA GOAT podcast on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting app. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review. That will help spread the word about the podcast and the Jindal School's MBA programs. To learn more about the Jindal School's MBA programs, go to jindal.utdallas.edu/MBA.